I've never been more glad to have a Secretary of War like Pete Hegseth, because he's the type of man whose body tells the story of discipline and leadership without his mouth having to say a word. So I know for a fact that the Iranian regime, who is chanting death to America, I know that when they look at Pete Hegseth, they're probably trembling in fear. And they're not really surprised when he follows through on his word and bombs the living crap out of them. And it's not that I'm rejoicing in the fact that these Iranians are being blown to bits, although, I believe that America has the right to defend itself. It's that when I look at Pete Hegseth and I see how he actually trains with the troops, and I see how the troops are excited when he trains with them, and I see that he benches 315 freaking pounds, which is beyond top 1% level strength, by the way. I don't even bench 315 pounds. When I see that, I'm like, that is somebody who, when he speaks, I can believe what he says because of the credibility that is inherent in his level of physical fitness. That's somebody who has the fruit of the Spirit, which is temperament, self-control, discipline. He doesn't overeat. He doesn't turn to food for comfort when he's feeling stressed. Even with the literal weight of the world coming down on his shoulders, he is clearly even tempered, not losing control of his emotions in the middle of the night, gaining up to 300 pounds. Like, that is something I respect in a leader. And it matters to me deeply as a 26-year-old man. And if you're watching this, you might, it's more than likely that you're not a 26-year-old man. My audience is generally guys who are more like 45 to 65. Guys who, want to lead 26-year-old men, whether that's their sons or their employees or what have you, or their team. If you're watching this and you're thinking, who are you, Gabe, to speak to me about leadership? What do you know? I'm not speaking to you because I'm the greatest leader in the world. I'm not speaking to you on this because I have built an 8-figure business yet, or I've led some church or something like that yet. I'm speaking to you on this because as somebody who craves credible leadership, as somebody who I desire to have men who are 50-something years old. I desire to have men like that in my life who can speak into my life, who I can actually trust because they're credible. I desire that. As a 26-year-old man who desires that type of leadership, it literally triggers me. It triggers a traumatic response in me when I hear men 50-something years old preaching discipline while their body tells a different story. It's disgusting to me, actually. I remember being invited to this event once, and it was a it was literally a leadership event. This is just so uncanny. It was the friend of one of my mentors who was putting on this event. I'm not going to say the name of the actual event itself, but let's just say that the word leader is in the title of the event, and it's one of these like fake Navy SEAL boot camp type things where they bring a bunch of men in a room and they yell at them and make them do these pointless tasks. And if they don't get it right, then they have to run laps around the building, and they do these fire walks and they do these army crawls. And it's like, oh, be hardcore, be a man. And what's funny is I was invited to this event, not as a participant, but to observe it, which was also very interesting. And so I sat in the back of the room for this event, and I'm watching this take place, and I'm like, okay, cool. This is happening, and most of the men in the room look like they're the type of men who need leadership in their lives. They're, don't necessarily look very disciplined. But the leaders, that's what threw me off. The leaders of the event, excuse me, I just drank a Diet Coke. I've got some burps coming up. But the leaders of the event are what threw me off. Because when I looked at the leaders of the leadership event, which, by the way, this is actually hilarious. Again, not going to name names. I live in the Nashville area of Tennessee. The leaders, two of these leaders of this event, are some of the most well-respected, highly credible business owners in the finance and real estate space in the Nashville area. Like, if you live in the Nashville area and you're anywhere in the world of finance, / real estate, you would know these guys' names without question. The two of the guys were, these were two of the guys. I'm not going to name their names. But anyway, both of these guys are overweight. And I'm watching them basically spit in the faces of these other dudes and talk to them about discipline and leadership and following through and being consistent. And I'm like, what are you consistent in? I'm in the back of the room trying to not react. Um, and what was also really sad was there would be moments where the group of men would mess something up, and then the leaders of the event would say, okay, time to run laps. And one of the leaders of the event, one of the overweight guys, would have to now get up and go run laps with the group. And I'm looking at the dude and I'm like, bro, are you going to make it around the building? Like, you're running laps and your shirt is coming up and you can see your belly spilling over your belt line, and you get back to the room and you're just as gassed as the guys who you're supposed to be leading. And again, I'm just sitting in the back of the room like, whoa, okay. And what was actually really, this is what really pissed me off though, because I'm observing this and I'm, again, like I said, getting triggered. I'm like, okay, this is horrible and disgusting and not at all what I want in my leaders. But what pissed me off was there was a moment when the group had to run laps because they messed something up in one of the menial, pointless tasks that they had to get right. Not pointless, I shouldn't say pointless. But in one of the tasks, the group messed it up and they had to go run around the building. And a few of the leaders stayed back. The leaders of the group stayed back. And they looked at me and they started to kind of lecture me. And they were basically talking crap about their own attendees. These guys were saying you see this, these men need this because they're soft, basically. And I'm just like, okay. Wow, now you're talking crap about the people who paid you money for leadership, and you don't even know what I'm thinking. And honestly, I did hold my tongue. Maybe I should have spoken up. Maybe I didn't have the courage in that moment, but maybe it was one of those wise moments where maybe I was supposed to hold my tongue. I don't know. Still working that out. But the point is, I was appalled by the hypocrisy in these leaders. Appalled, and again, this is a group that's well known enough that just being in and around the business world in Nashville, the name of the group comes up and the name of these guys comes up in conversation, and people are like, "Oh yeah, do you know about that? What do you think about it?" I'm just kind of like, well, let's again, it's the same issue of men calling themselves leaders while their body tells a different story. It is appalling. It is appalling. And you might be able to fool some people for some time. People who really have no experience being able to judge credibility and leadership. But for anybody who is beyond that initial stage of self-development, who's actually asking questions about, should I trust what you say? They're going to see straight through your crap. Straight through your crap. Okay? And so here's the thing. As men, if we are calling ourselves leaders, it is actually harmful to the people who we claim to lead if we don't live that way. And again, I'm not saying I'm perfect. I am not perfect in this. Not at all. There have been moments, seasons in my life where I have called the men that I'm supposed to lead to live a certain way, and where I've fallen off track in that 100%. It actually happened in the beginning of my career where I started a fitness coaching company, and I was, working out a ton, so I was staying muscular, but I started to turn to food because I was dealing with the stress of business. And I'm like, nobody will notice, me gradually gaining weight as I hide behind a Zoom screen and got up to 206 pounds at 5'10", which is clinically speaking in the overweight category. I also got a blood test done, and I was right on the line of pre-diabetic, so that was fun. But I've been there. I've been the guy telling somebody to do something that I wasn't doing myself. And it ate at me. It made me feel like a complete freaking fraud, as it should, honestly, as it should. It's not that you should accept that identity of I'm a fraud, and it's not like you should come into agreement with that, because that's not who God made you to be. But you should recognize that your behavior is fraudulent. Your words are fraudulent, and we're going to be acquitted or condemned by our words. We have to take accountability for everything we say. Everything we say. And man, it is so important that if we are in a position of leadership, to live that consistently. And if we mess up, because we will mess up because we're not perfect leaders, and we don't need to be perfect leaders, do not get that from this video. Do not get from this video, oh, okay, the guys that look to me as a leader I need to be perfect for them. No, that's not what we're asking at all. Like, I don't look at an overweight pastor and think I would only listen to him if he was fit. No, not at all. What I am saying is you do have a duty to live in alignment with what you're preaching. And if you're not, it's going to negatively impact how your message lands. You're going to have a less efficient time influencing people's hearts and behavior if you are not a credible leader, if you're an overweight leader. Unlike Pete Hegseth, who is an extremely credible leader, who can build faith, trust, and vision in the American people and in the United States military because of who he is and how he lives. But what I am saying is this: if you're struggling, if you're imperfect, it's our role to come to the people we lead with humility to say, hey, here's where I'm messing up, and this is my plan to improve. I had to do this in October of 2025 because I relapsed in my porn addiction. And that was a huge hit to my ego and something I never thought would happen after multiple year periods of complete sobriety from this. I relapsed and I confessed to my wife in October of 2025. And I felt that it was necessary, not in a public way of like, look where I messed up, but in an honest way, in multiple interactions, including a public podcast, somebody who I really respected, who I knew, a ton of people who I respected were going to watch this podcast. But I felt it necessary to come to the people who I was called to lead honestly and be like, hey guys, here's where I messed up. I am not perfect. I slipped in this area. I haven't been upholding some of the things that I tell you guys to uphold. The primary one, by the way, was just having consistent community and accountability with other men. Like, I was kind of in a lone wolf season of my life, and I didn't have men who were speaking into my life, credible leaders, which is why I crave it so much. One of the reasons I crave it so much. One of the reasons I'm doing this video. And I didn't have that for an extended period of time, which, unfortunately is not at all the way to live. We need to have leaders in our lives that we are submitted to. As men, as leaders, it's even more important to be in submission to other leaders. Anyway, I confess this, and I think that actually built more credibility with the people I was called to lead. I was having a conversation with one of the men in my organization he's 30-something years old, father of 3 kids, and he joined primarily so that he can get in shape as like the tangible outcome, but because he wanted to be a better leader for his family. And he was struggling with a ton of different things. And I had a conversation with him where it was kind of at the end of his term with us. And I was asking him like, hey man, is there, any other way that I can serve you? Like, how can I continue to serve you? And essentially what he was saying was like, Gabe, the number one thing that I've gotten from you, the number one piece of value is that you are honest. And it would serve me if you continue to be honest. That was it. And I was like, wow, that is impactful, because I had seen so much life change in this man. Again, lost weight, built muscle, incredible, but really just shifted in his heart and who he viewed himself as and how he was showing up for his family and how he was coming into agreement with who God made him to be. And the number one thing that he said he got from working with me was that I was honest. It wasn't about the 6-pack. It wasn't about the anything else like that. It was that I was honest. And that convicted me. Like, my job as a leader is, yes, I have a duty to live in alignment with what I am saying, like Pete Hegseth does. But even when I don't, I have the duty to be honest with my people. I have the duty to be vulnerable with my people, knowing that the only perfect leader is Jesus Christ. He's the only one who didn't slip. And it's like, dang, that's awesome. We should all aspire to be like that. And when Jesus works in our hearts, if we're going to say he did, then we should go on and sin no more. But man, it is incredible to see how just honest leadership and living in alignment with what we preach impacts the people we lead. So that's my message to you. Your body tells a story. I think Pete Hegseth is an example of that. And you probably feel the same way about him if you're watching this. I think that your people are going to fare very, very well if you show up for them in that way too. God bless. See you on the next one.